Listening to what you just said, you know, there are basically two grappling hooks into the British carcass, if you like, as part of the leaving deal that we did. The first grappling hook is the Northern Ireland Protocol, which actually prevents the United Kingdom from leaving the EU as one United Kingdom. And then the other grappling hook are the terms of the level playing field in the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, which requires us to align on state aid, employment, competition and environmental law. And with these two grappling hooks, the EU is holding the United Kingdom close, preventing us from being able to actually properly Brexit. So when these people gather wherever it is they're gathering for Tichley Park, for their secret talks to put what they describe as a failing Brexit right, what they need to first recognise is that we haven't actually got Brexit. You cannot judge Brexit until it's been delivered and divergence has been given an opportunity to manifest itself. We still have all the European Union laws on our books. We're fearful of diverging because of the Irish Sea border that's created by the protocol, fear of upsetting the EU, and prevented in large part by the level playing field that I described. So we haven't got Brexit, and before we turn our backs on it, it ought to be given a chance to work. That's what we voted for. The little slip in 2016 said, do you wish the United Kingdom to leave the European Union? We haven't left the EU yet.
Denis, are you more optimistic about what the Observer are reporting today when you've got the likes of David Lammy and Michael Gove sitting around a table and discussing what needs to be done to get this process, whether you agree with it or not, get it moving?
I'm also more optimistic by the fact that King Charles is going on a huge state visit to France, I think, next month. He's just announced he'll be addressing the Bundestag in Berlin later this year. Frankly, the King is doing far more than any of his ministers or shadow ministers in keeping a relationship between our country and our continent alive. Those who want this complete and utter rupture and just don't understand a single thing about British, English, Scottish, Irish history for the last 1,000 years. That story's fascinating. It's also in the Sunday Times, slightly downplayed. The Observer put it on the front page and the Sunday Times inside. Basically, Michael Gove is there, authorised by Rishi Sunak, to say Brexit isn't working. Now, that's an incredible statement from a party that's utterly wedded to giving us Brexit, campaigning for Brexit, getting Brexit done, to use Boris Johnson's phrase. And here they are now, gently hauling up the white flag. It is of huge symbolic significance.
It's because they haven't delivered it, Dennis. It's because we haven't taken advantage of any of the potential Brexit freedoms that were on offer. You know, the whole point of Brexit was to take back control. That was the three-word, mantra that they used to get it across, to get the vote across the line. But we haven't. We're completely aligned with the EU. We haven't diverged one bit. We've got to become that Singapore-on-Thames that so many of us wish to be. Ditch all that bureaucracy. Get rid of these laws. You know, I've heard it said in the House of Lords that we're not getting rid of the laws for fear of the vacuum it creates. Well, they singularly fail to understand the British legal setup. The whole point about the way we operate in this country, common law, is that everything is permitted unless it's expressly prohibited. And laws are not there to guide us like they are in the EU. Laws in the United Kingdom are made to prevent us from doing things. Otherwise, everything should be permitted. They should just ditch all of those laws and let people go back to the way we were before we joined the European Union. There will not be a vacuum.
One of the questions that Michael Dobbs asked in that debate was, why would you want to retain any of these legislative devices?
Why would you?
If we're not in any way. I mean, it's a little bit like Ben's grappling hooks, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I worked a lot in Singapore. Singapore is the most regulated, controlled, civil service-run little country in the world. More industry, more trade unions. The General Secretary of the Singapore TUC at the time sitting in the cabinet. Can you imagine that in Britain? Housing, land all belonging to the state sitting on the boards of companies. I mean,
Dennis,
no, sorry, Ben.
But there's no...
But if you go back to Michael Dobbs'
as you know,
point,
because we talked about it, We did some polling recently here at GBNews for Camilla Tominey's programme, and it demonstrated that the majority of people out there don't particularly feel any better off. But there was virtually zero appetite to rerun the argument and rerun the referendum.
Exactly. And Ben Keeps, and I've been here, I like him very much, he hasn't escaped from 2016. Now, what I think Gove was authorised to do by the Prime Minister was to open the escape hatch and say, what kind of relationship can we have with Europe? We've accepted Brexit. That's in the past.
But we haven't got it yet.
I love Michael
Dennis.
Well, we haven't got it. We haven't got perfect love. Rotherham United never won the Premier League.
It's not an imperfection about which I complain. It is about the fundamental aspect of taking back control.
Okay.
We had a Supreme Court ruling last week. I don't know if you followed this, Alistair, but it was a case that I brought with a number of other unionists against the protocol. The Supreme Court ruled that the Northern Ireland Protocol, which is a fundamental aspect of the deal that Boris Johnson did, breaks the Acts of Union. It also breaks the East-West dimension of the Good Friday Agreement, and it steps over the principle of consent, which is a cornerstone of that agreement. We have got constitutional massive constitutional self-harm being perpetrated by that deal. And the only way to put it right is to get a proper Brexit, to ditch the protocol and to take Northern Ireland back into the United Kingdom, restore it to its rightful place in the UK, and for us to leave the EU. We have not left. The Supreme Court came to that conclusion last week, Dennis.
Well, Ben, you know more than all the Supreme Court justices.
I didn't. I'm saying the Supreme Court agreed that we haven't left.
No, I mean, Arlene
to be crystal clear, because